last night, massive trade. First major trade of trade season goes down. Bo Horvat's dealt from the Vancouver Canucks to the Islanders, and the Islanders are pushing. Lou Lamoriello is making a push here. So we are thrilled to be joined by our Islanders beat writer, Kevin Kurz, to break it all down for us. Kurzy, how are you?
Good. How you guys doing?
Oh, we're good. I think the surprise, or however we wanted to categorize last night, has worn off, and we've gone full into, all right, how much sense really does this make for the Islanders? I mean, we know why the Canucks made this deal, and we can maybe debate the return, but let's start there, Kevin.
Yeah.
Why this deal right now for the Islanders?
Yeah, the timing does seem a little bit odd. I mean, it feels like one of those deals that they probably should have tried to make in the summertime. 52 games have been played by this team. There's only 30 left. And the problems that I think most people identified with this roster heading into the season have essentially shown themselves to be true. And that is this team has trouble scoring. 2 or fewer goals in 12 of the last 13 games, just 22 goals in the last 13 games total. A power play that is just terrible. Second to last power play in the league. So, is this really a roster where you look at it and you look at the results so far and you think, boy, this team should add at the deadline? I think that's very debatable. Now, that said, I think everyone's sort of been waiting around for Lou to make a move. And again, I think we figured it would be over the summertime. And, was he in on Johnny Gaudreau and the Nazem Kadri rumors and all that? He signaled that he still thinks, to me, that this move means that he thinks this is still a team that can chase a Stanley Cup this season. And that's, again, that's very debatable at this point.
Do you think he just ported over the deal that he offered for JT Miller for Bo Horvat? He was like, "Hey, Jim, remember that one? You want to try it again?"
I guess so. And I think this deal's probably, in the long run, this is going to be, as long as they can get Bo Horvat signed, which right now seems like an uncertainty. Mm-hmm. This is a better deal. A 27-year-old guy who's a center, who that you can potentially put with Matthew Barzal, who you just signed to an 8-year extension for the foreseeable future, and that's your top line. You can just set them and let them be for a little while. So in that sense, it does make some sense. But if you look at it through the prism of just this season only, again, the timing is a little bit odd.
Yeah, I mean, so like if we're talking just a pure hockey perspective, you said they struggle to score, need power play help. I mean, from a pure, like, you're bringing in a guy with 31 goals in 40 games or whatever it is. Like, this is the solution. This is exactly what they need. I guess is it too late would be the question.
Yeah, there's no question. They needed someone like this, and they needed him now, and they needed him 2 months ago also, probably. But the power play is what Lou was pretty direct when he said, this is a guy that's going to have to help our power play right away. And obviously I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but that's really been the most baffling part of this team, because if you look at last season, from February 1st on last season, this team had the NHL's 4th ranked power play. Well, they didn't change any of the roster. The top power play unit is the same, but it's been terrible. So to me, that's on the coaching staff. Why can't this coaching staff get the same out of the power play this season that they did last season? I guess that doesn't matter now, because you're bringing in Bo Horvat. He's going to be the top line center. He's going to win faceoffs on that unit. And he's going to have to kickstart it right away, because, again, this is a team that their biggest problem has been scoring goals. Now, there are a lot of reasons for that, and one of them is they don't have enough finishers, and that's obviously reflected on the power play, but it's also reflected 5-on-5. But one of the other constant problems that Lane Lambert has mentioned throughout the last few months is they've had trouble breaking the puck out of their own zone. So to me, that makes me wonder, are they going to go after a defenseman now that might be able to help them do that?
Well, right?
Yeah, I mean, and that's what I wrote last night. Is this can't be the only move. If the goal is to contend for a Stanley Cup this season, this can't be the only move.
I thought it was a couple weeks ago now, which is crazy because things haven't gotten any better for them offensively. But you wrote a piece just kind of detailing how the power outage across the board that's happened really since the start of it, how it's gotten worse really since the calendars flipped.
Mm-hmm.
Is it? I guess. How many lines aren't working? Do you know what I mean? How much?
Them, I think.
Yeah, right. Like, is there anything as is with that team in their roster that you can look at and say, like, whatever extra moves they make, whether they add a puck mover, whether they add another forward, is there anything? Is there any group of three in that among those forwards where you're like, all right, this is fine. They don't have to touch this.
Well, Brock Nelson was cold for a little while, but I think he's been generally their best forward throughout the course of the season, at least their most consistent forward. Earlier, maybe you could say that was Matthew Barzal. He missed a game, I believe it was January 6th in Calgary, and then he only has 2 points since then. I think he was probably dealing with a little bit of some sort of injury that obviously we didn't get too much detail on here. Anders Lee still has a respectable goal total. He's a guy that gets to the front of the net. The line that this team has essentially been identified with, and no pun intended, was that identity line. And that was Casey Cizikas, Matt Martin, and Cal Clutterbuck. Well, Cizikas has been a winger with Matthew Barzal lately. They put Atu Ratu as the fourth line center. He's obviously gone now. Cal Clutterbuck is out indefinitely, which, around this team, you wonder if that's for the whole season. Oliver Wahlstrom too. I've heard rumblings he might be out for the season. So, they need some help, and obviously Horvat will help in that regard. And I think the best way to approach this is load up the top six. You put Horvat with Barzal. You have Anders Lee and Brock Nelson. You keep them together. You have Pajot as your third line center. I'm not sure what they do on the fourth line now because, again, Ratu was their fourth line center. He's been traded. So the depth issues are still there. God bless Zach Parise. He's got however many goals. I think he's third on the team right now with 13 goals, maybe it is. And is he really a long-term solution? Is he a guy you really want skating in top 9 minutes at this stage of his career? I'm not quite sure. So they're a little top heavy now. When you look at the forward group, again, that's just leads me to think that there have to be some more moves here before the deadline if they truly want to compete for the Cup this season.
Reading Pierre's piece last night, he wrote essentially, this is going to come down to whether or not they can sign Bo Horvat to an extension. Reading between the lines, a guy like Lou Lamoriello certainly is doing, I'm assuming, some sort of back channeling. There's like, can we get this done? I don't think you make this trade completely blind, or at least without some sort of indication. So maybe that's been set in motion. But I'm just curious. Here's a guy who's having a career year. When you think of the long-term kind of view of the Islanders, Is this the right guy for them to be investing in if they end up doing a massive deal with him, which he's going to demand based on the season he's having?
Yeah, that'll be the interesting part is if they want to sign him to, say, an 8-year, $8 million deal, yeah. How do you do that? And, I look at a guy like Josh Bailey, potentially. I think he could be a buyout candidate at the end of this season. I think that would save them $2.3 million last time I checked in salary cap room next season. It probably means you don't re-sign a guy like Semyon Varlamov unless he wants to take a massive pay cut. So you'd be in the market for a backup goalie. Clearly, that's probably not a huge deal right now because Ilya Sorokin is we know he's going to be the man here for probably the next decade, right. In goal. But what you're doing here is you are still mortgaging the future a little bit for a group that is already a little bit older. You've got a lot of money locked up in Anders Lee, in Brock Nelson. You cleared a little bit with the Beauvillier contract going to Vancouver. So, this is a team that, assuming they don't have that 2023 first round pick, they will have gone 4 straight seasons without a first round pick, which is putting a lot of pressure on the young guys in the system you have to produce. We've seen improvements from some of them. Wahlstrom maybe hasn't developed the way they had hoped. I think the jury's still out on him. On defense, you've got a younger defense group. Noah Dobson's improving. Alexander Romanov they brought in from Montreal. He's a guy that I think they still hope will improve throughout the course of his time here. He's just 23 years old. So, but it's the forward group that you worry about their age a little bit. And even, you bring in Horvat, obviously, who's a guy and is in that's in his prime, and you would expect him to remain that way for at least 2 or 3 more seasons. So I guess you kick the can down the line a little bit further with this group. But again, for me, it comes down to, is this group good enough right now to contend? And that's where I think a lot of Islanders fans are looking at some of the results lately and asking themselves, was it really worth it to, again, give up, pieces, assets that could help in the future for this team right here, right now, that so far does not look like a contender.
Yeah. The structure of the trade, and obviously the big thing going back to Vancouver is the pick, which is top 12 protected for 2023, and if that holds over to 2024, there's no protections on it at all. To me, that's the fascinating part of it, right? Not just from a Canucks standpoint, but from an Islanders standpoint too, because you mentioned kicking the can down the road. That puts potentially even more weight on Ilya Sorokin's shoulders next season. If they don't re-sign Horvat, if things really go sideways, you're saying, all right, buddy, let's redo that from last year, and also maybe bail us out of trading away a potential top 5, top 7 lottery win, whatever it ends up being. You're just putting more on Sorokin's plate, and he seems like he can handle it. He's been fantastic, but what have you seen from him, I guess, up close over the last little bit to let you know that he's, that he's worth this bet? Because I feel like that's a big part of this too, right? This is adding Horvat is a bet on how good Ilya Sorokin has been, and is he worth it? And if he is, why? And what have you seen from him?
Well,
lately?
Every goalie expert I talk to seems to just love this guy. I don't know if you guys have ever talked to Adam Francilia, the independent trainer that's worked with guys like Connor Hellebuck's one of his clients, James Reimer, and he loves this guy. And I talked to him maybe 2 weeks ago, just because for me, from my standpoint, it was particularly impressive that Sorokin was still playing so well when he probably knows going into every game that he better allow 2 or fewer goals or he's not going to win. Because if you look at his record right now, I mean, I think he's 16-4 or something like that. So his record isn't great, but he's got these fantastic numbers. He's kept the team in every game. And this is a team that, for long portions of just about every game, they seem to be hemmed in their own end. And early in the season, it was the beginning of games. Lately, it's been late in games. They went 11 straight games without a third period goal until they finally scored one against Detroit on Friday. But Sorokin has remained just steady, just unflappable. He has that ability to I guess, compartmentalize what he has to do without worrying about the team around him. And obviously he's got the skill set. We've all seen him just make these incredible saves, and he just makes the difficult saves look easy. So I don't think there's any doubt that the team will open up its wallet for him this offseason. And that's really another facet of the potential Horvat deal, is the Islanders are going to be, able to extend Sorokin this offseason. He's going to, have that 1 year left on his deal at $4 million, which is obviously a huge bargain right now. How much is he going to command, and how might that affect what they might have to do if they do sign Horvat to an 8 extension? The money's going to dry up pretty quickly, and I know the salary cap's set to go up, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens if they do in fact sign Sorokin to some sort of a massive deal this offseason after agreeing to one with Horvat.
At least they dump Villiers. Like that helps. They don't have his $4 million on the books. That was something I don't think I paid enough attention to last week.
Yeah, and then if you do buy out Josh Bailey, that frees up more money. But then again, you still got to get somebody to play here. So
you can only fill out. Bailey.
Yeah, you can only fill out. And Islanders fans have said that. I've seen that in my mentions. Well, Beauvillier wasn't very good right now. Josh Bailey's still terrible. Let's get rid of these guys. Like, okay, that's fine, but you got to replace them with somebody. And when you lack the prospects in the system and you don't have many first-round draft picks, just from a lack of trading them away earlier, I mean, you got to find guys somewhere.
Right. I know any Canucks fans listening will be really curious to get your opinion on Aatu Räty, a kid who, went from supposed to be a top 5 pick or whatever he was in the 21 draft and ends up sliding to the second round, but has kind of recovered. so much of this trade from a Vancouver perspective hinges on this, and then whatever happens with that pick. Like if it ends up being a lottery ticket, later on down the line, what are they getting there, and what's his ceiling?
Yeah, I thought he was impressive when he came in. He played 12 games. He got a couple goals. They didn't really put him in much of a chance to succeed with better line mates, which I thought was a little surprising, especially lately because they have had so much trouble scoring goals. Now, Lane Lambert did try him with Matt Barzal for a little bit, not much at all, not really anything significant. I mean, the last few games he was skating with Matt Martin and Josh Bailey. So, that's not, Bailey hasn't been good this year. Matt Martin is not an offensive player. So how much impact could he really have? I will tell you that off the ice, I was impressed with him. I thought he was a really mature kid. I think he's a really headstrong guy. So I think from that standpoint, it's good. He won't be someone that's affected by having to spend more time in the minors. I know he's gotten a taste of the NHL now, and I'm sure the Canucks, unless I'm mistaken, I think they're going to sign him to their AHL team. He's not going to be anyone that's going to be adversely affected by that, just from a mental standpoint. I think he's good like that. His skating is the big issue. That was something that I think has been labeled as a potential problem area. I didn't think it was that bad. I thought he was getting around the ice just fine. And maybe it'll never be to the level where he could be a top 2 center. But to me, it does look like he has the tools that this guy's going to play in the NHL. Whether his ceiling is third line center or higher, I guess he'll have to determine that on his own. But I do think he's a nice prospect. I do think he's going to be an NHL player. And again, I was really impressed by the way he handled himself off the ice. And I think that really left an impression on the coaching staff and the front office too. This is certainly not a guy that they were actively looking to trade. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind they would have preferred to keep him.
He's gonna step in and be the Canucks number 1 center within days. Are you kidding me? He's the best guy they got. I don't know what they're center of the AHL for. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean that's and you guys know how certain fan bases like to really drastically overrate prospects. And listen, he's a nice prospect.
Everyone loves a prospect hugger, baby.
Yeah, but a lot of times people sort of daydream and think he's going to become the next NHL superstar. I don't think that's going to happen. But again, I do think he's a nice piece, and I think the Islanders certainly, in a perfect world, would have liked to keep him around.
Yeah. Well, Kurzy, I know it's a busy time for you. It sounds like there's probably still some work for the Islanders to do, so it's going to be trade deadline's going to be fun. So appreciate you carving out some time here. Great work and all your coverage, and appreciate it.
Okay, yeah, thanks, guys.